Chernobyl was amazing.
Chernobyl was amazing.
Man, such a well-told story. I was constantly on my computer while watching that to see how much was factual.
Yeah.
And it scared the shit out of me.
How much was factual?
Most of it.
Yeah.
Like I knew it was a really messed up story. I knew some of it, but to hear the nuances and then to visualize it in the story they tell, and then to look it up, be like, oh yeah, there were divers that dove into this with the Russian leader saying, hey, by the way, you're gonna die like within a couple hours of this.
Yeah.
But you're probably gonna save half the hemisphere. Like, well, how are we not memorializing those guys? I don't care if they're Russian. Like,
Yeah.
they probably like, yeah, they fucked it up, but they still did some shit.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Those guys are heroes.
God.
You know,
There's so many untold heroes like that. It kills me.
Yeah, you know what sucks is that we've got another one happening live, and they can't do anything about it. Fukushima.
That's still going on?
Yeah,
Ooh.
they haven't sealed that stuff up, and now just
didn't know that.
recently, because it's all underwater, underground, and
Are they seeing some more UFOs in the area?
no.
You know those stories?
Oh yeah, hold on. We'll talk about
Okay,
the Bob
okay.
Lazar thing that I just saw recently and the Unacknowledged documentary. I love that because I watched that just recently. But no, Fukushima is still leaking, and the problem is the seawater has access to it, and now 100% of the fish that they've caught in the Pacific Ocean have traces of Fukushima in them now because it's spread across the ocean and is going to continue to do so because they can't seal the sucker up. So yeah, it's interesting, scary stuff. But I agree with you. Those heroes from Russia, they need to be lauded, regardless of what their nationalism was.
Yeah, we need a global group to identify heroes. I think I don't know if there is one, but
No.
people like that.
The UN.
No, a group that does stuff, like actually does stuff.
Sorry, my bad.
And tell those stories.
But speaking of the UFOs, have they been
Yeah.
reporting UFOs at Fukushima? Have they really?
Yeah, since
That makes a lot of
since
sense.
since the catalyst.
Wow, you know that makes a lot of sense because you know if you listen to the stories like the Unacknowledged documentary that what's his face put out, Greer, right? So he's talking about he actually has like top level brass who had top secret clearances and whatnot, and who were in charge of the nuclear bases and whatnot back in the 50s and 60s, telling the stories of UFOs coming to the front gate of the base and having the guy at the front gate freak out and call high command and say there's something floating outside the front gate. And he has a direct conversation with the top brass who's in charge, the CO's in charge of the base, and he's like, well, what's it doing? He's like, well, it's just hovering. And then all of a sudden he
Was
gets
this the U.S. base in the U.K.?
No, this was the U.S. base in Montana.
Oh, a different story.
It's a right.
It's crazy that there's more than one.
You're thinking
Yeah.
about the one that landed in the woods with the.
Yep.
You know,
But they started shutting down the nuclear silos, which are, ironically, siloed, that don't have connection, don't have, you know, it's like not like you could shut down one and then all of a sudden it becomes a chain event. They shut down individual silos one at a time.
Literal Faraday cages, which no part of the electromagnetic spectrum is supposed to get to and from.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be remote.
Yeah, and so you have Greer who puts this documentary together, who actually gets the guy who's the CO say, yeah, this happened. I was on the phone. I was in my bed at 2 o'clock in the morning when I got the call, and the UFO is floating outside the gate, shutting down the missile silos one by one, which there's no way that any human would be able to do that without, you know, specific orders and specific, you know, separate teams being able to do it, et cetera. And they were just losing power. They were going inoperative, which freaked everybody out because, you know, that's one of the biggest national defense mechanisms that we had back in the 50s and 60s, and this UFO is shutting nuclear missiles down. And then it left, and then they all came back up. And then the other scuttlebutt is that all of the nuclear missiles that we fired into space have been destroyed by
Oh, I didn't know this part of the story.
unidentified flying objects. And yeah, I mean, this, you know, it's all hearsay and you never know if any of it's true or that type of thing. But a lot of this stuff fits that if Fukushima is leaking nuclear energy at this point, that...
Yeah, apparently there's been a high number of or what's the new term? Unidentified aerial phenomenon?
UAPs.
Unidentified aerial phenomenon is the new DoD term. New as in like 10 years ago. But apparently there's been a high number of reports
Wow.
since it happened.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It does.
It's weird that they could shut down a bazillion nuclear missile silos independently and in rapid succession, but they can't figure out a leak.
Yeah. Well, it makes you wonder because, I mean, there is a great deal of science that is connected with nuclear power and non-local quantum field energy. And when you're blowing things up with nuclear energy, you could be reaching out into other worlds or other people or consciousness itself or, whatever, and affecting a large number of things that we don't yet understand that, we're playing with
it's
matches.
creating fluxes in all kinds of fields.
Right. And so it would make sense for a technology or a species that understood that stuff much better to be interested in, hey, don't play with the matches, kids.
But I like the Bob Lazar example of if you had a man-packed thermonuclear weapon and you brought it back to the 1800s and gave it to the top scientists, they'd all kill themselves.
Yeah, they'd open it up, and they'd die, and then the people would come in, check on them, would die, and they wouldn't understand why, and then they'd call it magic or black magic, and then they'd go bury it in a hole somewhere. Right?
And then Matt Damon would dig it up and use it to heat his rover up,
Matt Damon would cook some potatoes with it.
Bat Damon.
You like them apples?